The stuff is here now. Great new day sensation. Light and free now. Gives you elevation. Enough is never enough. Enough is never enough.
The following message is being issued across all territories. This is not a test. A national recall has been issued for the food product known as the stuff. If you have this product in your possession, discontinue its use immediately and contact your local authorities. They will be able to assist you with the disposal of the product. If you, a loved one, or a friend has already ingested this product, please seek your nearest hospital. They will be able to assist you. A worldwide ban has been issued against all merchants who carry the stuff and all vendors who supply the stuff. Any sale or distribution of the stuff is prohibited and severely punishable by law. Special teams are being dispatched to assist with this crisis. It is imperative that all citizens comply with this message. Further instruction will follow momentarily.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to ZTV Presents Movie Reviews. I am Paiper Zombie, your host as always, and on today's episode, we're jumping into B-movie territory with the 1985 film, The Stuff. So without further ado, let's get to it. The Stuff opens on a cold, snowy night at a mining plant called Fletcher Mines. One of the plant's employees, a man named Harry, is doing a perimeter search when he notices that a section of the snow is pulsing. He goes in for a closer look, and like any intelligent person, he sticks his fingers in it. When nothing happens, this genius actually tastes it. He comments that it tastes good and that it's sweet. Shortly after that, another employee who is also doing a perimeter search happens upon Harry and asks him if he's eating snow. Harry tells him that it isn't snow and asks the other guy to taste it. The other guy won't do it at first, but eventually he does. Like Harry, he also seems to be taken by the taste, and he wonders what the hell it is. Harry says that he doesn't know, but he wonders if there's enough of it bubbling up out of the earth in order to package and sell. We then cut to who knows how long into the future, where we meet our first protagonist named Jason, played by Scott Bloom. He's currently under attack by mosquitoes and gets up to close his bedroom window. Their bites must have infected him with a late-night case of the munchies because he heads downstairs and into the kitchen for a snack. When he opens the refrigerator to check the selection, he sees something that makes his blood run cold. As Jason backs away from the refrigerator, he bumps into his father, played by Robert Frank Tefler, who's been brought downstairs by the noise of his son moving through the house. He reprimands Jason, telling him that he thought he was a burglar and asks him what he's doing up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Jason responds that he was hungry and then asks his father if he saw the stuff moving. When his father looks into the refrigerator, he sees no such thing. However, it doesn't seem at all odd to him that the stuff is somehow staying perfectly in its cup without spilling out. As per usual for these kinds of movies, Jason's father doesn't believe him and sends the boy off to bed, telling Jason not to ever scare him like that again. But once Jason is gone, Daddy returns to the refrigerator and has himself a little late night stuff. We move on to the next day where we join a group of company heads as they cruise on their yacht. They've all come together because all of them are terrified of the stuff. They all work in the dessert business and the stuff has been killing their profits. Nobody wants ice cream or cookies or any of the old sweet stuff anymore. Everybody wants the stuff. With no other options, they hire our main protagonist, an industrial saboteur by the name of David Rutherford, played by Michael Moriarty. But he tends to go by the nickname Mo. Now why is that?
Because every time people give me money, I always want more.
The company heads want Mo to find a way to infiltrate the company that makes the stuff. They want him to find out anything he can about the product, especially how they make it. Mo happily accepts the job. We then return to Jason's house and get the chance to meet the other two members of his family. We've got Mummy, played by Colette Flanagan, and we've got Big Brother, we never learn his name, is just Big Brother, played by Brian Bloom, who, as a neat little tidbit, is actually the real-life brother of the actor who plays Jason, Scott Bloom. Mother asks Big Brother to go upstairs and check to see if Jason is awake and ready for school. Daddy, who's still bitter about Jason wandering around the previous night, reveals that Jason has already missed 3 days of school and that he's not missing any more, no matter what his excuse is. Jason comes into the kitchen at that moment, and his mother asks him if he wants something to eat before he goes to school. Jason declines, citing that his stomach doesn't feel too good. Big Brother, who's done with his breakfast, then asks if it's okay if he can have some of the stuff. Mother tells him it's okay, but Jason tells his brother not to eat it. When his father says it's fine, that he had some last night, Jason continues his dissuasion, telling his family that the stuff is bad or spoiled. Mother tastes it herself and says that it doesn't taste spoiled to her. She then gets a spoon out of the drawer, takes a spoonful of the stuff, and tells Jason to taste it for himself to see if it tastes spoiled. Jason refuses, so Big Brother takes it. Jason continues to warn his family, telling them that the stuff moves around all by itself. But of course, nobody believes him, so he slaps the cup out of his mother's hand and runs out of the house. We move on to a laboratory where Mo is checking with one of his sources in regards to what the stuff is. All the source knows is that the stuff is made from some type of benign bacteria, much the same way yogurt is, but it's unknown what the bacteria actually is. Unfortunately, the company that makes the stuff is protected by the FDA's Statute of Identities rule, which allows them to keep the ingredients of the stuff a secret, much the same way Coca-Cola and Pepsi are allowed to keep the recipe for their syrup secret. Mo figures the only way they're going to get info about the stuff is to find someone who can get them direct access. This leads him to the set of a commercial where he meets Nicole, played by Andrea Marcovici. Nicole is an advertising executive who came up with the entire promotion for the stuff, and she's none too happy about having her commercial disrupted by Mo. However, he's able to sweet-talk Nicole into listening to him. Unfortunately, he lies to her, and he tells her that he's the head of a petroleum company and would like for her to build and run their promotional campaign. Nicole doesn't quite go for it until Mo tells her that his intention is to buy her agency and to put her in charge of it. With that on the table, she goes to her assistant, has her meetings for the rest of the day canceled, and asks her assistant to pick her up a nice dress for a dinner meeting. Meanwhile, there's a whole lot of jumping in this movie. At a grocery store, Jason is a kid on the edge. He walks around noticing how many people are buying the stuff. Some can't even wait until they get home to eat it and are eating it right there in the store. That's when Jason finally snaps, taking away the little black kid's stuff and smashing it onto the ground. But that's just the beginning. Jason goes full-on Spartan rage and destroys all the stuff he can see. Displays, glass, nothing is safe. He's raging so hard that it takes three grown men to pin him down and get him under restraint. While Jason is raging at the store, Mo pays a visit to the residence of Mr. Vickers, who's an administrator with the FDA. We find out Mr. Vickers was part of the team who tested and approved the stuff. When Mo asks Mr. Vickers how the stuff is made, he doesn't answer the question and instead deflects, stating that the stuff is good. It's a safe product. It's so safe, he even feeds it to his dog Ben. Mr. Vickers does offer to give Mo a list of the rest of the people who were on the panel with him, who also tested and approved the stuff. Mo lets him know that he's already tried that route, but it's odd. It seems everyone is either deceased or they've moved out of the country. Mo then asks where the stuff was tested and is given the location of State of Virginia. Mr. Vickers then offers to go up and get some of his old preliminary worksheets so that Mo can look over them, and maybe they'll assist him in his search. As Mr. Vickers goes upstairs to get the papers, Mo ponders the other man's behavior. For some strange reason, he appears to be almost afraid of his own dog Ben. Mo wonders why that is, and as he and Ben step into the kitchen, they do a bit of investigating. Upon opening the door that leads into the dining room, Mo finds what appears to be a surplus of the stuff. Mr. Vickers returns with the papers, and Mo is able to play off his snooping as just going to get a glass of water. With the papers in hand, Mo takes his leave and promises to send everything back once he's Xeroxed it. Remember when that was a term for making a copy for something? Old times. Anyway, once Mo is gone, Mr. Vickers and Ben are once again alone. Mr. Vickers tells Ben that he's been a good boy and that he deserves a treat. In fact, they both do. We never do find out what that treat is, and instead we catch up with Mo at 2:30 in the morning as he drives by a stuff shop. Yeah, these places actually have their own dedicated shops. Mo is surprised by the amount of customers that are there at such a late hour. It's like it's still prime time. While Mo is noticing that, we return to Mr. Vickers' house where it looks like he's in trouble. But from what? That four-legged answer presents itself a moment later as Ben enters the room and snatches the phone connection out of the wall so that his master can't call for help. Terrified, Mr. Vickers attempts to take shelter underneath the nearby table. That's not enough to save him, as Ben suddenly does this. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but if my dog ever in his life did some mess like that, we'd be taking a trip out to the backyard of which he would not return from. Because that was not rabies, that was unholy. And we wouldn't be having any of that in my house. I mean, I love dogs to death, but he'd have to go. We catch back up with Mo, who's decided to take a trip out to Stater, Virginia. Upon his arrival, he notices something odd about his surroundings. There's houses, there's vehicles, but aside from himself, the gas attendant, and a couple of store clerks, no other people seem to be around. As Mo is getting his car filled up, a mysterious vehicle rolls up and parks in front of one of the nearby houses. Mo asks the gas attendant if he recognizes the car, but the gas attendant doesn't. Feeling brave, Mo goes over to the car to investigate. He checks the front seat but finds it empty. While he's doing this, the gas attendant makes a break for it and runs into the nearby forest. But before Mo can ponder that situation, he's attacked by another man. Mo is able to subdue him and immediately recognizes this man as Chocolate Chip Charlie, played by Garrett Morris. Charlie has come to the town of Stater in search of the people, who also happen to be his family members, that not only stole his company out from under him and kicked him out of it, but turned around and sold it. Stater was the forwarding address that was left by his relatives, who all seem to have disappeared just after they took his company from him. Mo and Charlie decide to visit the nearby post office to see if they can uncover anything. The clerk inside isn't one to give up any details until the two men press him. They find out that a lot of people have been using Stater as their forwarding address, but for whatever reason, they've all relocated to Midland, Georgia. When Mo asks why the clerk stayed while everybody else went to Midland, the clerk tells both of the men to go away and that they aren't bothering anyone. Charlie wonders who the hell the clerk is referring to because there's only one of him there. Who is they? Unfortunately, neither men get to find out as the clerk excuses himself and goes into the back. When Mo and Charlie hear the man making a sound as if he's hurt, they go to investigate. What they find is like something out of a horror movie. Both men stare in shock, wondering what happened, and knowing that there's no way possible a person's mouth could ever open that wide. They notice a broken window nearby and wonder if maybe the man was attacked. That leads them out of the window and back into town. As they walk, Charlie suddenly gets the feeling that he and Mo are no longer alone. This turns out to be true, and the men flee to a nearby boat because it's there and attempt to escape. The men catch up to them and a short scuffle ensues. During the fight, both Mo and Charlie discover that these men aren't as tough as they should be. Hits that would have normally bruised a person seem to tear these guys apart. Just one regular punch damn near takes off this guy's entire face. Luckily, the two are able to escape and find sanctuary in a diner. They decide to work together, and Mo sends Charlie to meet with his contact at the FBI in Washington, D.C. Mo doesn't think his contact will believe him if he tells him what's going on, so he's hoping the contact will believe Charlie. As Charlie goes on his way, Mo decides to go directly to the top of his list and see Mr. Fletcher, the head of the company who makes the stuff. But on his way there, he's almost run over by a very suspicious-looking truck. As the two men talk, Mo finds out that Mr. Fletcher has never eaten the stuff himself. He also finds out that Mr. Fletcher has no honest clue what the stuff is, but has very much noticed the addiction it seems to create in people. Mo presses on, asking Mr. Fletcher where the stuff comes from. When Mr. Fletcher hesitates, Mo informs him that he's aware that a big portion of the people connected to the stuff have all moved to Midland, Georgia, and that he's aware that Mr. Fletcher owns a mining company through a conglomerate there. Mr. Fletcher then very bluntly tells Mo to let go of it and that he can't stop it. Mo threatens to go public, but Mr. Fletcher says that nobody will believe a man with a reputation like Mo's. In a counteroffer, Mr. Fletcher actually invites Mo to come work for him as his head of security. He even has a starting bonus already on hand. You see, Mr. Fletcher knew that Mo was going to come and visit him eventually, and he had all this business worked out already. Mo, seeing a huge opportunity for a way to get into the company, accepts the offer on the condition that he doesn't have to eat any of the stuff. With that door open, Mo then meets up with his ace-in-the-hole Nicole. He tells her the truth about the stuff off screen, and we come in while she's recovering from that knowledge. She feels so ignorant and horrible for having helped give the stuff its popularity, and has no problem teaming up with Mo to help him find out everything that they can about the stuff. It's been a while since we checked in on Jason, hasn't it? Well, he's back home, recovered from his Spartan rage, and apparently punished to the confines of his room. He heads downstairs to check on dinner, and as soon as he walks into the kitchen, he notices strangeness immediately when the dinner table is set with plates, but there's no food. That's all in the trash, and right next to that trash, a whole lot of this. The strangeness gets even thicker when Jason walks into the front room and sees what his family is up to. Everyone is eating the stuff. It's what's for dinner. They're dieting, you see. Mother has already lost 5 pounds. Jason wonders why his family is acting so oddly, as Daddy offers him a bite. Jason refuses and attempts to run away, but Daddy ain't having that and sends Big Brother out to capture him. Instead of reprimanding Jason, Daddy instead gives him a pint of the stuff and tells him to go upstairs and that he can't come down until he finishes it. Jason goes upstairs, but not to his room. He makes a detour to the bathroom to get rid of the stuff down the toilet. Suddenly, the stuff comes to life and attempts to escape the toilet. Jason is able to flush it down without it getting to him, though. Jason then puts shaving cream into his empty stuff pint and eats it in front of his family. However, he can only manage so much before the taste makes him sick and the jig is up. Jason manages to make it outside this time, but his family is in hot pursuit. Now, I have no idea how Mo knew to be there or how long he had been sitting there waiting, but his car pulls out from near Jason's house and he tells the fleeing boy to get inside. Jason asks Mo who he is, and Mo tells him that he believes his story. He saw the stuff move too. That's right. Jason's actions at the supermarket actually made the newspaper. Mo thought it would be a good idea to make contact with the boy and find out his story. The two get acquainted and Jason finds out that he'll be joining Mo and Nicole on their trip to Midland, Georgia. Nicole, who knew nothing about this, is wondering if Mo just abducted a kid or not. But he smooth talks her and is able to get her to go along with it. After their arrival in Midland, Mo and Nicole go on their arranged meeting with some of the public relations officials behind the stuff. Mo leaves instructions with the pilot that if he and Nicole aren't back in 3 hours, to take Jason on to Savannah, Georgia airport. Jason is on the plane asleep, so he doesn't hear any of this. As Mo and Nicole head inside the factory where the stuff is made, Jason finds himself startled awake and in the middle of another bind. The pilot has been compromised, and the stuff is coming to get him. But Jason is a smart kid and finds a way out through a hatch and makes his escape. But where is he going to run to? His trek leads him into the direction of a loud whistle where he finds Fletcher Mines. For a plant that's supposed to be closed, he finds that it's pretty active with trucks sporting the logo he's come to hate. In an attempt to stay hidden from the servicemen, Jason hides inside one of the tankers. But a very attention-to-detail-oriented employee takes notice of the open hatch and closes it, trapping Jason inside. Meanwhile, at the factory, Mo and Nicole have their tour, but they're still unable to find out much about the stuff. They can't see where it's mixed at or told what the ingredients are. After the tour, they're told that the company has set up a hotel for them to stay in and that they would like to meet with them again in the morning and have breakfast. As Mo and Nicole journey to the hotel, they discuss the stuff, realizing that a person must have to eat enough of it in order for it to take over their mind. Since they didn't return in 3 hours, Mo assumes that Jason is in Savannah, Georgia. He and Nicole settle into their room to get some rest when, late in the night, they get an unexpected visitor when the stuff erupts from one of their pillows and attempts to suffocate Mo. After Nicole burns it off his face, a henchman comes clipping out the bathroom and attacks. He's easily subdued, but then the entire bed erupts with stuff, capturing the henchman in itself. Mo sets it all on fire, and both he and Nicole escape, their destination, the factory. It's a good thing the inside of those takers are oxygenated, I assume, because Jason has been inside that same one this whole time. It finally leaves the mine, headed for a destination unknown. However, Mo and Nicole are nearby and see the trucks leaving. They decide to follow. The trip leads them all out to an undisclosed location where a huge lake of the stuff awaits, siphoning into the tanker trucks. Mo figures they need to steal one of the full tanker trucks in order to prove their case and sets out to do that. He sends Nicole back to the truck and tells her to meet him further down the road. As part of his plan, Mo sets explosives, no, I don't even know where the hell he got those from either, along the canyon wall. While he's waiting for a truck to steal, he comes across one of the tankers that appears to have a voice. That voice is Jason. He's still trapped inside, and there's a fresh supply of stuff siphoning into the tanker. Unfortunately, this means that Mo has to cause a scene and steal that truck in an attempt to save Jason. As he drives off, he detonates his charges and blows the canyon walls up, successfully burying the entire lake of stuff. It's clear Nicole ran all the way to that truck in her heels because she's just now getting to it after all that stuff Mo just did. She finds a surprise inside the truck and it tries to assail her. Luckily, Mo rolls in to save the day. Inside the tanker, Jason huddles as far away as he can from the approaching stuff. It's been taking its time to get to him. It knows he can't go anywhere. Salvation finally comes and Mo rescues him, much to the anger of the stuff. The three then head out to yet another undisclosed location and meet a man that Mo knows, but that man doesn't know him. This man is Colonel Malcolm Gromit Spears, played by Paul Sorvino. He's a retired colonel who leads his own little militia. Mo informs the colonel about the stuff and what it's doing to people and asks for his help. The colonel decides to give it and goes along with Mo, Nicole, and Jason back to destroy the plant. As the attack begins, all of the factory workers flee as the PA system announces that the front gate has been breached and for everyone to do the agreed upon action. Going in pursuit, the good guys find that all of the bad guys seem to have committed suicide. The sight is too much for Nicole. She takes Jason along with her and goes outside. On the way, they come face to face with the living river of the stuff. It tries its best to corner them, but Jason and Nicole evade it and make it outside. But that doesn't stop the stuff. It blows through the wall and out of the tankers. Looks like our heroes are about to be in a world of hurt. However, the stuff decides it was just playing and it settles, seemingly going dormant. The colonel sets up the next plan. They're going to go to where he broadcasts his radio program and they're going to put the word out about the stuff. They make the trip safely and immediately prepare to go to air. Remember the only person of color who shows up in this movie? That's right. Charlie finds his way to the radio station and forces his way past the guards to see Mo. Glad to reunite with Charlie, the crew gets ready to go to air. Nicole and Charlie head into another one of the rooms to prepare Charlie for what he's going to say when they all go to air. As they talk, Charlie reveals that he's seen what happens once the stuff gets through with its victims. It eats them up on the inside, leaving a hollowed out husk of a person on the outside. When Nicole asks Charlie how he knows this, he proceeds to show her. And I always got mad at this part because why did the only person of color in the entire movie have to get compromised? Why couldn't he win just like the rest of the good guys? Man, no hope. Anyway, Jason comes in to check on Nicole and Charlie and walks into the scene of horror. Now, both are trapped in a room full of the stuff. It's mad and it's hungry. Fortunately, Mo and the militia come by just at the right time and see what's happening. Mo breaks the glass, severs 2 electrical wires, and uses that to electrocute the stuff. Jason and Nicole are brought to safety moments later. Then, the colonel goes live with his message about the stuff. As a twist, people actually listen to and heed the message. The stuff is withdrawn from distribution, and all of it is collected and destroyed. And when I say destroyed, I mean destroyed. People are out in public burning it, stuff shops are being blown to smithereens, all production facilities are torched, everything is all gone. As things close out, Mo pays a visit to Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher actually gloats at Mo, asking him if he thinks burying one location will stop them. The stuff bubbles up in multiple locations. Mo says, well, that's just fine because we'll just have to bury those too. In a surprise, Mr. Fletcher isn't alone. With him is the man who hired Mo in the first place. He was the head of the ice cream industry and is all too glad to show Mo the new product that the two have come up with. They call it the Taste. It's 88% ice cream and only 12% of the stuff. Just enough to make a person crave more, but not nearly enough to take over their bodies and their minds. They know it's safe because they've already tested it in a small town in Illinois. When Mo asked both the men to taste the product themselves, they refuse. At this point, Mo calls in two of his friends, his gun, and Jason. Jason is carrying a surprise for the two men, a big box of the original stuff. Both men are made to eat it at gunpoint. As the men chow down, Mo asks of them, "Are you eating it, or is it eating you?" Mo and Jason then take their leave as the police arrive to arrest the two men. Meanwhile, in another town, in another place, three men meet in a back alley. One of them takes out a box and opens it. Inside are pints of the stuff. After sampling a bit for himself, the man nods in approval. It's the genuine stuff, and enough is never enough. So that, ladies and gents, is The Stuff. It's a film by Larry Cohen, who was known for doing B-movie horror and sci-fi film. But he also went on to direct some very serious outings like Phone Booth in 2002 and Cellular in 2004. But The Stuff is from his B-movie fare, and it's true B-movie fare, but in a good way. The film does take itself seriously, but not too seriously. The way Cohen wrote it was he wanted it to be a satirical look at consumerism and corporate greed. Because for those who don't know, fast food restaurants really do in real life put stuff in their food to make you crave it more. That's why everybody loves those fries from McDonald's so much. However, New World Pictures, not to be confused with New Line Cinema, they wanted a pure horror film. So they were a little bit miffed when they got presented with this, but they accepted it. The original cut of the film is actually longer than what got released in the theatrical cut, but cuts were actually made to go ahead and increase the pacing of the film. So some of the things that we didn't get to see were like actual creatures made out of the stuff. There was supposed to be a walking version of the stuff, and then there's supposed to be a baby version of the stuff. So maybe one day, like all that stuff is supposed to still exist. So maybe one day they'll do a full release of the movie. Although it's pretty hefty and pretty long, it's over an hour and 30 minutes. So if it was even longer than that, then wow, that's going to be close to about 2 hours maybe. As for my opinion of the movie, I've always liked it. It does have some really cheesy parts like any good B movie, but when it bears down, it works very effectively with its horror elements. And sometimes in B movies, you don't have that. It either goes very much for one or the other. And when it tries to work with the horror elements seem cheesy. But this one, it has that good balance. It knows how to move between them really well, if you ask me. You could tell that if he wanted to, Cohen could have really made this just a straight horror film. But I don't think it would have had the same type of feel to it to just be straight horror. And then that would have been a problem for him because that then would have gotten this film compared more with The Blob and Invasion of the Body Snatchers instead of just letting it be its own thing. So yeah, if you're in the mood for a movie that's got some horror with a satirical snap to it, you'll totally enjoy this movie. Like don't go in expecting like art house type of stuff. Like just go in expecting a good B movie, and that's exactly what you're gonna get. And that's going to be it for this episode. I'd like to thank you all once again for joining me. I always appreciate it. Please feel free to comment. I always read them. Subscribe if you feel so inclined. And if you like the review, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you didn't like the review, feel free to hit that thumbs down button. But if you're going to do that, at least tell me why. Because if I don't know what's wrong, then how can I ever hope to fix it? On that note, I'm Paiper Zombie, and I'll catch you next review.